The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
Sack News. Sack News.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Huge spiders everywhere. That's what we encounter all day long in the Sackhead studio. Hey, it's the 27th of November, 2013. This is the Sackheads radio show. Making a special guest appearance tonight is Sackhead Clint. Don't look at me like that. You knew I was going to give you a hard time over this, didn't you? Come on, let the people hear your melodic and beautiful voice. How you doing, buddy? Nothing. Getting nothing out of him except for a blank stare. Kind of like
People
my...
are soon not going to believe that I'm actually here. They're going to think that it's like you running over to another microphone using some kind of synthesizer.
Why would I even run to another microphone? This show's...
Listen, because there's a donut over here.
Well, I'd run anywhere for a donut. I think we know that.
But I put it around the microphone so that you would actually run to it.
347-205-9399 is our phone number tonight. I want to once again thank the amazing Tammy J for sitting in for you last week. We did miss you, but Tammy did a darn good job of filling in the spot. And
she does an awesome job.
No matter what. No matter what. We love having Tammy as a friend. We love having her on the show. She's pretty amazing. How was your week? You took a week off?
Yes, that's what I was doing. I was completely just taking a week off. I was relaxing.
Good. You deserve that. Well, you've been stressed a lot lately.
Nice.
Everything that's going on in the world of politics and everything, you can tell it's really starting to bother you. I'm glad you could finally get a week to relax. Just a week for you. That's what you needed.
I wish I had a week for me.
How about an hour?
I would take 5 minutes. Listen, don't start with me.
I just flew in and I'm punchy. So much happened this week. We're going to talk about as much as we can. Tonight's our special Thanksgiving Proclamation show. It's our yearly tradition that we discuss and read the proclamation.
That's right.
And so I'm excited for that. I look forward to it for two reasons. One, here at the Sackhead Studio, it kicks off the holiday season for us.
Studio.
Yeah, the silo.
Studio.
It's no big deal. We just have a studio.
Studio.
It's kind of huge. Anyhow, so that's exciting because the holidays are my favorite time of the year. Most people don't believe me when I say that, but I'm a holly jolly mofo.
Because you have a green shirt underneath a red pullover.
Isn't that me?
Yeah, I would say Christmassy. Because, I don't say holidays because I don't give a shit at crap stuff if I offend people.
No.
So I'm going to say Christmas.
I say...
Yes, I know Thanksgiving is a holiday. And then,
right.
And then,
so I include Thanksgiving. I also include Hanukkah.
By the way, Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah to our friends. Absolutely.
First time in years that Hanukkah and Thanksgiving are on the same...
Yeah, what a uber joyous occasion.
I read somewhere that it was going to be like 700 years before that happens again.
Isn't that amazing?
No.
I hope I'm around to see it. I'll be lucky if I make next year. Yeah, I'll be lucky if I make it through this whole show. No, so happy Hanukkah to our friends of the Jewish faith, and so much to talk about this week, but I do have a good story to tell. And it's funny. I talk to people when they find out I do what I do here. They become immediately engaged in politics, and they jump right into it. And I love it because we talk about politics all the time. It's kind of our bread and butter on the show, if you haven't noticed already.
Yeah, so you say bread and butter. I prefer, like, butter and syrup. I'm a waffle kind of guy. But bread and butter works, too.
Well, I just meant when I'm having my mashed potatoes.
Okay.
So I was talking to my mailman. I went to pick up the mail, and he was listening to Christmas music on his little iPod. So
this sounds like a joke to me.
No.
Is this going to be like so a three-legged dog walked into a bar and said, "Hey, who shot my paw?" Is this like that?
I love that joke because it's simplistically stupid and funny all at once. So exactly. So I was talking to Rich tonight. That's on my way here, and I said, Christmas music, love listening, blah blah. He said, yeah, I used to love the holidays, but the older I get, the harder it gets. And I was like, well, yeah, because you're in the mail service, and this is the type of year you get busy. And he said, no, I used to love that. He's like, it used to be, and he said he's been on with the Postal Service 25 years or so. He said it used to be, starting now, every time I delivered a package, people were happy to see me. Like that holiday season, like, hey, this is great, like it's coming. You know what I'm saying? And he said, but now, he said, for so many people in this country, every month is a holiday because they're getting a free check. And I was just kind of like blown away by that statement right then and there. He's like, we've become such a gigantic group of just freebie hand-arouters. He's like, half this country, he's like, and not everybody. He said, but I grew up in this town, and where I live used to be a fairly conservative town, and it's going the other way apparently. He said, every house for the holidays would decorate. He said, there'd be people who used to be out caroling. He's like, you go to huge neighborhood parties. He's like, now, he's like, people don't even look at each other. He's like, the yards are a mess. He's like, and the problem is in every single neighborhood, there's that one or two houses that are, he says, I call them handout houses, and I know exactly who they are because I deliver the checks there. He said, and it's once those houses start showing up in neighborhoods, it almost ruins the neighborhood. And I was kind of blown away by that statement. I'm not saying he's wrong, but just the fact that you look at the insight he has, he does deliver the checks. He knows who's who. He says, I know exactly what check looks like, what, and who it's going to. He said, most of the houses I deliver to, nobody's working inside. Nobody wants to work inside. He's like, there's pot smoke billowing out of the garage. He's like, they're in there playing Xbox at 2:30 on a Wednesday afternoon. He said, and I'm hoping to finish my shift and be able to go home. He's like, and most likely what happens now, he said, especially in the holidays, is I'm going to get back from my route, and they're going to push me back out, and I have to go back out and deliver more. He's like, I won't get in until 7 or 8 o'clock at night sometimes. He said, and it's just depressing me that there's a group of people in this society that would absolutely siphon from a system and not think twice about it. And that just stuck out to me. I just thought that was a pretty...
we've talked about that before.
We have, and then I mentioned the show and the fact that I talked politics, and it was a conservative show, and he and I talked for like another 15, 20 minutes. Of course, I was late to the studio, but just the insight, we talk all the time about people and how they view things, and it's the different experiences that people have and kind of how they view the world. And he, the people that don't feel like they have to produce, the people that are the gimme crowd, the grow up crowd, the free check crowd, all that stuff, the 1 in 3 people that are unemployed that don't even want to look for work, when you see it through different sets of eyes, it helps you, A, realize you're not as crazy as you think for always being aggravated by it, but B, what a tremendously wide problem it is. Even when we do the show, we know what we've seen numbers, we read numbers, we do all that stuff. But when you start talking to people that deal with it every single day, it's really alarming at how obvious it is. And we are still ignorant, for the most part of this country, of that part of our society. So I just felt that was a pretty cool conversation to have. Again, it kind of reaffirms that we're not as crazy as everyone likes to think we are on the conservative side of things, and all the flack that we get.
Well, he's clearly crazy also. It's kind of like when two crazy people have a conversation. It makes complete sense to them.
Well, I even asked him, I said, hey,
like the conversation could be, you got a bologna sandwich? And the other one say, poo-poo, and like that.
Right, and they're high-fiving each other?
Right. Was it like that?
Pretty much.
Left with, like the Huffington Post would paint that exactly as that's what happened. Well, which would be weird because the postal employee was a federal employee-ish, So they would like to support the unionized.
Asked him about that. I said, oh, well, you work for the Postal Service. But he said, first of all, I have nothing to do with the management of the service. He says, I took this job because it was hard work. He said, when I started, he's like, there was none of this one mailbox in a neighborhood where I just drove up and emptied it. He's like, it's kind of easy now. He's like, I used to walk a route, and he's one of the few mailmen you see nowadays, and I wrote something about this months ago. In the summertime, he wears it. Yeah. I have two guys that do my mail. Both of them are really good guys, but both of them always wear their entire uniform, which how often do you even see that anymore?
My postal employee does not wear a uniform. The first time my postal employee was delivering mail and was in a mail truck with no identification on, mm-hmm. I actually stopped and I said,
Who are you?
Who are you? He looked at me like I was the idiot.
Right. Did you just rob the mailman? Right. What happened?
Yeah. He said, the post guy goes, yeah. I said, this is kind of weird, but you don't look like the mailman to me. Well, and he was like all huffy or whatever.
All mad because you dare called him out.
So draped over the.
Well, and that's something, I wrote something about it a couple months ago, how it aggravated me that they could be losing so much money and they can't even wear the uniform that's paid for and given to them.
Well, maybe they can't afford the uniform anymore.
No, they all have it.
Maybe the uniform is what.
Both my guys, and this is why I respect them, both the guys that do the mail in my neighborhood, their uniform's neat and pressed. They always have their ID on. They always shut off the truck when they get there instead of just letting it run. And any special package or anything that seems semi-urgent, they always walk up and they always knock on. They don't just throw it on the front porch and walk away. Or they always they always knock on the door, try to hand deliver it, and they'll both hide it. And when I first moved in, they said, he stopped me. He's like, just so you know, at your house, if you have something that's expensive or large or something, this is where I'm going to hide it. And he showed me.
Right, it's going to be behind your refrigerator. I'm going to take a couple beers out. It'll be behind there. But if you're missing a couple beers, don't worry. Easter egg hunt.
If either one of them came into my house, I'd give them both a beer because they're really good guys and they work hard. But he said, it used to not be like this. He's like, these guys now that they've hired in the last 10 years, he's like, all they do is complain nonstop. He said, and I can remember I'd walk 15 miles a day. He's like, I'd do 2 or 3 routes. He's like, and we didn't drive to the little neighborhood and do the neighborhood pods or drive to the neighborhood to start delivering. He's like, I picked it up from the post office and actually walked to my route, did it, walked back, picked up again, go out. It was just funny how to hear him complain.
Now, did he take a long pull on a scotch and say, damn kids?
I wish he would have. I can remember as a kid seeing that with postal guys. You'd see them open their little green boxes, which were almost like their drop-off boxes.
I have a story. So I have a story for you. So I used to go to a bar. I used to work a night shift.
Right.
And at an old radio station. And I'd go to this bar, local neighborhood bar that would open at 6 a.m. And they would have breakfast, and they'd cook, guy a little greasy spoon in the back, cook breakfast, bring it out, and every morning at 6:15, a guy would come in and go sit in the corner stool in full postal uniform. It was awesome. And he would sit there and drink, and he was a great guy. We'd sit there and talk, and he would sit there and drink from about 6:15 until 7 o'clock, and then he'd go to work.
Well, yeah. Because depending,
he's not getting off.
I can understand it because depending what neighborhood he gets stuck in, that might be the only. It's like the teacher that has a really bad class and he's hammered just about all day.
Right.
Because that's the only. Well, like when I was a student, all my teachers drank, and I couldn't figure out why. Every year I went to a new class, I'd have a whole new set of teachers, and they all become alcoholics halfway through the year. I didn't understand that. I still don't. I don't know why. It's not me. I know it's not me. Bob Newhart, who's an amazing comedian, does this whole thing about a retirement. It's his whole bit, but at the end, the guy who's retiring says, well, I've been hammered the last 30 years here. It's the only way I can get through with it. I honestly could understand that in some places of work, especially the Postal Service. I also don't condone it, but what was the comedian said? I don't necessarily understand why people go postal, but I don't condone it, but now I understand it, or something to that effect. So that was like I said, it's just more and more as time's going on, and I talk about the show with people, I talk about what we do, and you can see it starting to grow. People that used to be quiet about politics, especially conservatives. Listen, we've been quiet for the last 15 years.
More than that.
Yeah, since Reagan, really. We've been quiet. And because almost we were just afraid of having the argument nonstop and just, we'd get called
we're nice,
all these
respectable people.
Well, we
Hold on a second.
We are.
There is a culture difference
between,
in my humble opinion, between a large segment of the progressive class and conservatives. And this is illustrated by the Occupy movement and how they conduct themselves at rallies versus the Tea Party movement and how they conduct themselves at rallies.
I agree with you.
So there's a fundamental difference between being a rude, obnoxious ass, which we are, but typically it's reserved for that other group, correct?
Right.
And so, they're loud. They get the attention. They get, right?
Right.
And conservatives are, okay, this is ridiculous. We're not going to stoop to that level. Typically, that's my opinion on that.
Well, I feel that's because the those on the left, especially the Occupy movement, that is the smokescreen from what their true message is. Because if their true message gets out, a lot of people wouldn't want to listen to it, which conservatives, we're not ashamed of our true message.
I don't think they care. I think they know exactly what their true message is, but the way they do it is they go about and be heard, and they're loud and obnoxious. They don't follow the rules, typically, and they do it in such a manner that garners attention. And honestly, I don't think they again, not all of them, but there is that segment in the leftist movement, especially the far left movement, that doesn't care about society or the rules. It's all about achieving their objective. And
what's good for them?
I saw this quote at an appellate court that I was at last week on my lovely vacation. Thank you for that. But what it says is, and it's a quote of Thomas Jefferson that one of the justices had up outside of a conference room.
I loved his show.
And it says, no, not George Jefferson.
Oh.
Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, I was going to ask about Wheezy.
No. George Jefferson is a love child. But it's...
Moving on up.
What it says is every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle. And I took a picture of it. And that kind of struck me, and obviously I thought about the show, but I wanted to talk about it, so this kind of segued in perfectly to what you were saying, back then, there really was kind of some difference of opinions on how we should go about things, but the principle was the same. It was small government, it was individual liberty, it was natural law. The principles of the country were the same. It was kind of how we got there, right? And we start seeing the formation of political parties, which Washington warned us about. Today, that's not the case.
Right.
The Democrats and Republicans, specifically the progressives and the conservatives, they not only have a difference of opinion, it is a fundamental difference of principle.
Polar opposites.
So that statement that was true...
One's a penguin, one's a bear.
That statement that was true at our nation's founding no longer holds true. And so I started thinking more about this. And look, if we were able to come together as a nation and form the nation and the Constitution and the governmental system we have, that's when we had people that were on the same page trying to reach a common goal. Mm-hmm. We don't have that anymore.
We have very different common goals.
We don't have a common goal at all.
No, each side has their own. It's not a unified.
It's not common. Each side has their own goal. It is not the common goal. Before, each side had a common goal.
Right. But, I understand what you're saying.
But we don't have that. So, and that got me to think that we're in bigger trouble than I previously thought.
I would agree with you.
And look, I knew we were in trouble before because of the where we are and the opinions we have today, but I didn't realize we were in that big of trouble. And look, there's going to be a very big power struggle. It's already going on. We already see it. But somebody is going to win, and this country is going to go
one way or the other. Yeah.
It's coming to a head. So that kind of...
Or it will collapse completely into itself.
Well, but again, that could be by design, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So overload the system until it collapses in on itself and erect a new one in its place.
Weird.
So
it's almost like Obamacare.
So is Obamacare that structure for that new system, which is awesome. It's already working so well.
And it's not
that's
just...
my story I wanted to share with you this week.
I think it's great, and I want to share that picture. If you'll send it over to me, I'm going to put it up. I'll put it up on Twitter. You're going to text it. You are so savvy.
Not a big deal. I can't tweet or whatever, but...
I agree with you, and you know what's funny is I was having a conversation with a liberal.
Why? Oh.
Because I like angry discourse.
Okay.
It's fun sometimes. And we were going down almost that same conversation of, well, we want this and we want that. By the way, I give him credit because as much as I don't agree, at least he calls himself a socialist. He says, I am a socialist. I believe in socialism. Unlike a lot of these progressive and liberal Democrats who try to hide under the name Democrat because if they said socialist, the mass as a whole would kind of fight back against that and say, whoa, we can't have socialism here. And I said that to him. I said, hey, he says, I'm an atheist socialism. And I say, you know what? I don't agree with you, but I appreciate the fact that you will say that.
That you're honest about it.
Exactly. And we had a good conversation. We didn't agree on a lot of things. We did both agree that Obamacare was a disaster. Obviously, his answer was, well, let's go to the single-payer system and just get this done with. And my answer was like, no. Let's just scrap this whole thing and start over and encourage the free market. Right, wrong, or indifferent. We made jokes, whatever. Until I brought up the fact that, where this country is going and how divided it's become. And I said, we haven't been this divided as a nation, in my opinion, since the last Civil War, or the Civil War in this country. And he immediately started backtracking. No, not even close. I mean, we all get along. I said, no, you and I have a good we can have a conversation. That's all great. But as a mass, this doesn't happen. I said, you look at our government right now, you look at our Senate specifically, and we'll talk about the nuclear option they passed last week, or the Senate Dems did. But
is that the Iran thing?
Yes, the Iran thing. You mean the other smoke screen?
Right.
I almost titled this show a nuclear smoke screen because that's what it became.
The only way it could be worse is if the Russians wanted to put some kind of listening post or satellite space thing on U.S.
That would only happen if we allowed them to freely fly over our nation in the military. Oh, listen, all right, I'm out of control right now. But to get back to my point, and he started backtracking. And then he started, making accusations. Well, there's only going to be a civil war because the conservatives want it. But I said, whoa, we don't. The conservative groups don't want this. We don't want any sort of a civil war. We want our country to remain as close to the Constitution as possible. You remember the document that stood through the last Civil War and came out on the other side? And it's only that once the progressives and the liberals and the socialists like yourself started to attack and destroy that we became angry. Listen, if you believe in socialism and you want to do it in your own home or whatever in your group of friends, that's fine. But don't force it upon the rest of us. I think I'm intelligent enough to make my own decisions, even if you don't think you're that smart, is pretty much what I said to him. And he started trying to dump this back on conservatives.
Or amend the Constitution.
Right. Go for it. Let everyone know what your true nature is. And that was my point, is I said to him, let everyone know. You do it. Encourage all your friends. Start registering socialists. Just because. Let everybody know. We registered.
There is a Socialist Party USA.
And he specifically is. But I said, get everyone on board. Let's see how many socialists. A couple socialists have ran for state office and whatnot. Don't be afraid of it, except for the fact that you know it's wrong and you're hiding it. You specifically know, but
it's wrong under our system of government.
It's wrong under our system of government, and a majority of the people know. Even the uber liberals that aren't necessarily progressives, old blue dog Democrats, know that socialism is a bad way to go, and they know it's going to fail. We've seen it fail time and again.
Name the last time any socialist program just one.
Currently? Well, look at England. England's in a mess right now. England's healthcare system is...
In the Revolutionary War, they failed, and in the war...
You look at England's healthcare system right now, It's in a hurt. The Canadian healthcare system.
Big fail.
It's in. Well, yeah, that's Martin Bashir, who's a big fail.
Funny sucks, apparently.
England doesn't suck, but
Stonehenge research.
You know what I've decided? England.
Wait, is that in England?
I think England is like the originator of this country's version of white guilt. I think they feel guilty for all the things that happened years and years and years ago that they try to like make it up to everybody at once, kind of like Obamacare, and it failed miserably. And I think but I was reading a thing that their healthcare system is so hurting for money that the quote-unquote death panels that Mark Halpern talked about and then pulled back the other day, they have that over there. They have that rationing where they turn around and say, all right, this person's X number of years old. This is their illness. This is how much it's going to cost.
They have to.
Right.
They have to.
They don't have a choice after a while.
I dare Joe Biden to walk up to Queen Elizabeth, slap her on the ass, and say, go ahead, stay off with their head.
I get the ultimate dare for...
and then walk away and say, that broad's going to do it.
That broad's just crazy enough to... World War II hero, really. Oh. She's got to even ask for that, then.
A
lot of people don't know the Queen was in the military. But, yeah.
A lot of people don't know the Queen is the military.
Well, yeah. She's pretty powerful, as much as a lot of people don't believe so. I dare Joe Biden to get rid of his federal health care and join Obamacare. That's the ultimate. Like, go ahead, Joe.
That's not as good as mine.
It's not as funny as yours.
That's the litmus test we're using right now.
Oh, your comedy versus mine. I see. All right, here's the litmus test I'm using right now. It's called the mute your microphone test. Let's see how that goes. No, I'm kidding. Why don't we take a break? Because we do have a lot of actual...
Why don't you take a break? I'm still going.
That's why I'm going to take a break.
Okay.
It's time to cut you off. No, when we come back, let's talk about Thanksgiving Proclamation. Because I think that's huge.
You want to talk about it?
Well, you're going to read it.
I'm going to read it.
And then we'll talk about it.
How would I read it?
You're the presenter on it.
I'm not the presenter.
You presented it last year.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I presented it.
We talked about this in pre-production. Oh.
No, we didn't.
It's like dealing with a ferret for an on-air partner. Well,
How dare you find your keys?
I have no idea where they went. 347-205-9399. When we come back, Clint's going to read the Thanksgiving Proclamation.
No, I'm not. You know how long that thing is?
Hey, if you care about what's going on in the world, you cannot afford to miss my show. Hi, this is Andrea Kaye, your host of The Andrea Kaye Show. It's not always about the money. Okay, it is always about the money, but it's also about politics, pop culture, and you. The only thing street about this show is the smarts. There's a reason they call me Dynamite in a Dress, and you'll find out why when you listen Tuesday mornings at 10 on Financial News and Talk.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the wingnut leaders throughout the world to give our men and women of the armed forces a job, as well as all the anarchists, terrorists, and Occupy folks that give our men and women in uniform on the home front, firefighters, law enforcement personnel, and first responders, job security here in the States as well. So thank all you wingnuts out there. This is Sackhead Clint saying have a good day.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show, 347-205-9399, if you want to join the show. Sacco hopefully will be here to take phone calls. He ran out again.
I'm proposing a new rule.
Okay.
You know how we have company policies and procedures?
Absolutely. We have our own here at the Sackheads Radio Show.
Well, of course we do.
SHR Media mandates it.
So, we do?
Yeah. The two guys that own that are jerks.
Right.
I mean,
but they're really good looking and fun to talk to.
I just wish they wouldn't wear Speedos to every single meeting. I think that's the most bizarre thing.
No. Remember, we switched to singlet.
I just threw up in my mouth a little.
Are you funnelling plums in there? What is that? Remember?
You're like one of those ball bearings?
What is that, a Vienna sausage and plums? That's cute.
Thank God nobody's listening the night before Thanksgiving. I think it's great that we're going to come out of this and then read an amazing historical document written by the first president of our republic.
The visual was awesome. And next time for the staff meeting, I say we bring the Crisco and baby oil.
All right.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, the only way we ever solve differences on the show is Greco-Roman wrestling anyways.
That's true. Remember when Sacco was the only one that wanted that one thing, and so we said, okay, you got to wrestle both of us for it.
You know what? I realized why Sacco's not here right now.
Why was his mouth open the entire time?
He's a mouth breather.
You know what? But that actually turned into the scene from Borat when they're wrestling over the cliff. Anyway.
Sacco's not here tonight because I pushed on the show that we may play the knockout game with Sacco.
Maybe Sacco's wife plays a knockout game on him, which is why he's not here
and
right now.
It would make a lot of sense, actually. I would, too. Please
Anyways,
continue.
I have an idea of our policies and procedures, and we're going to bring this up at the next meeting. I say we scrap the whole thing, and we just use general orders issued by General George Washington.
I think it's a brilliant idea.
All his general orders, like whatever his general orders were, is now company policy.
We'll have to start pulling those and finding how we're going to apply them to each and every segment.
Right, like no swearing.
Right.
But I don't like that one because then we could never have Rooster on the show ever again. And I'd probably have to miss 3 out of 4 weeks.
I'd end up having to put you in the stocks for hours after every single show.
Right.
No cursing. Good job, Clint. We're 3 minutes into the new show. Oh,
wait a second. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to have pants on.
No, you're not.
Okay. How really we're going to follow that bit with George Washington's Thanksgiving Proclamation?
Yes, and you have 25 minutes.
You, sir, have 25 minutes.
I do.
This is actually a tradition that I started in my house.
Yes.
And I believe you picked it up.
I did.
Your house was where?
After discussing it with you several years ago when we first met, yeah.
So this is something I read, and Sean as well, at the beginning of Thanksgiving, as we sit down to Thanksgiving dinner. And it's I would, this is a historical document, historical proclamation written by President George Washington at the request of Congress on October 3rd, 1789. So I actually tested the theory one time and had my daughter take this to school. And that was interesting to say the least. But let me read the proclamation, because this is a proclamation issued by the President of the United States at the request of Congress. So what it says is, by the President of the United States of America, a proclamation. Whereas it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and humbly to implore His protection and favor, and whereas both houses of Congress have, by their joint committee, requested me, quote, to recommend to the people of the United States a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to be observed by acknowledging with grateful hearts the many and signal favors of Almighty God, especially by affording them an opportunity peaceably to establish a form of government for their safety and happiness, end quote. Now, therefore, I do recommend and assign Thursday, the 26th day of November next, to be devoted by the people of these states to the service of that great and glorious being, capitalized, who is the beneficent author of all the good that was, that is, or that will be, that we may then all unite in rendering unto Him our sincere and humble thanks for His kind care and protection of the people of this country previous to their becoming a nation, for the signal and manifold mercies and the favor, able interpositions of His providence in the course and conclusion of the late war, for the great degree of tranquility, union, and plenty which we have since enjoyed, for the peaceable and rational manner in which we have been enabled to establish constitutions of government for our safety and happiness, and particularly the national one now lately instituted for the civil and religious liberty with which we are blessed, and the means we have of acquiring and diffusing useful knowledge, and in general for all the great and various favors which He has been pleased to confer upon us. And also that we may then unite in most humbly offering our prayers and supplications to the great Lord and ruler of nations, and beseech Him to pardon our national and other transgressions, to enable us all, whether in public or private stations, to perform our several and relative duties properly and punctually, to render our national government a blessing to all the people by constantly being a government of wise, just, and constitutional laws, discreetly and faithfully executed and obeyed, to protect and guide all sovereigns and nations, especially such as have shown kindness to us, and to bless them with good governments, peace, and concord, to promote the knowledge and practice of true religion and virtue, and the increase of science among them and us, and generally to grant unto all mankind such a degree of temporal prosperity as He alone knows to be best, given under my hand at the city of New York, the 3rd day of October in the year of our Lord, 1789. George Washington.
For the record, that applause was not necessarily as much for your reading as it was for George Washington's writing.
George Washington's writing.
You read it beautifully, though.
Clapping out also. I was going for that George C. Scott kind of thing. I don't think I quite...
Well, you had the helmet on, and I thought that was kind of cool.
This is not a helmet. This is a stormtrooper mask.
But you have the weird is you have the twin Colts on your hips. I didn't understand why. That just didn't match the stormtrooper mask.
Yes, it does.
First of all, I challenge you to find in history another, especially in the last 50 years or so, and there's a couple out there, a couple of any other legislator or president or government employee who could write such a beautiful proclamation with such meaning, such depth, all the way around. That it was far from the day where anyone would dare shout out separation of church and state.
Well, obviously. I mean, this is, here's the thing. Now, this is obviously false because our founders were atheists. They clearly believed in, they were deists. They weren't really religious at all. They didn't believe in God per se as a being that took part or played any sort of role in human affairs. And clearly this proclamation bears that out. Oh. Listen, clearly there's a separation of church and state as written in that one letter by Jefferson that the left has so championed as being law. Congress would never want the President of the United States to issue a proclamation by joint committee recommending to the United States a public day of Thanksgiving and prayer. Oh wait, I just read that.
Yeah, that's exactly what you just read.
But listen, they wouldn't have done that if they really knew or understood the Constitution.
They wrote it.
Listen, but you're not understanding, Sean. Okay, you're not understanding. Their level of education was so low back then, and George Washington was such a simpleton that he did not understand, nor did they understand what it was they were writing. Okay, they just put the words down. Clearly, they wanted the separation of church and state, but they didn't even care enough about the principles that they established to follow it.
No, that's exactly what they did.
You're not seeing the point.
I am seeing the point.
You know how ridiculous the liberal argument was? And the teacher actually like had issue with this until when the teacher said, the Thanksgiving Proclamation. I said, do you really want to fight this fight? That was a proclamation, historical proclamation issued by the first president of the United States at the behest of a joint a committee of Congress. Do you want to take that on? She couldn't read. She can't read a historical document in school.
Right.
Let me refer you to the Northwest Ordinance. So
yeah, but we've seen this happen more and more, where historical government documents are moments in history by this nation that are great, that have the word God in it, or anything of that nature, automatically get. I mean, you look at how they're trying to pull out any sort of religious article and statement out of courts and out of anywhere that has the federal dollar in it, and state dollar a lot of days. And it's amazing to me how the left continues to do that and continues to argue. And listen, like I said before, if you don't believe in a higher power, that's on you. You have that right, and I respect that right. I look at guys like Penn Jillette, who is an atheist, but he believes in the founders and he believes in the Constitution, and he respects why they wrote what they wrote. He just doesn't believe. That's fine.
And let's look at really what he was talking about. I mean, he wasn't just offering like a non-denominational prayer for the country. That's not only what he was doing, but I mean, he talks specifically about political, moral, and intellectual blessings, right, from God, that make our form of government possible, a form of self-government, right? Not for the collective, not any kind of tyrannical
mob rule
or straight democracy, mob rule, right? Self-government. But in addition to that, he talks about personal and national repentance and forgiveness. And he talks about nations forgiving us and our transgressions. And there's such depth to it, and you don't hear, I haven't heard anything like this, obviously, in a long time, which is why I think this piece is particularly important around Thanksgiving time, which is why this to me, this speech ranks up there with his retirement from military service when he resigns his commission. It ranks up there with his farewell address. It's a very important piece of history, and I think that this particular proclamation gets overlooked a lot by government, by the American people
in general. Yeah. Well, and I find it amazing that they held their president, or they held him in such high regard, that the entire Congress said, hey, we want you to write this. We want you to do this. We don't want some poet, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but we have such faith in your ability to put to words how we feel, that we want you to do this on our behalf, on behalf of the nation, and to the nation. And I think that is amazing. And, you know, we can learn a lot from that time and from how they looked at that president. And listen, you know, we say it all the time, as much as we dislike the policies of this president, and oftentimes people confuse that with we don't like him, even though we've said a million times on the show that's not the case. We respect the presidential office.
We respect the office of the president.
I respect him on certain accounts as being a family man, and I believe he is.
I believe him to be a good family man.
Yeah, I believe that
the relationship he has with Michelle, or his children, but from everything I've seen, heard, read, I mean, he seems like a
good family guy.
Good family man, absolutely. Yep. I take nothing away from him.
It's his politics that we take umbrage with, and as much as everyone loves to confuse that, that's the way it is. Exactly. Oftentimes, people throw out anything they can to belittle the political argument into, like I said, racist or any other word. But
we do that sometimes out of fun.
You know, when you go back to and you look at his approval rating, why it's so low now, and we talked about, you know, the president with the highest approval rating a couple weeks ago was George W. Bush just after 9/11. That was a time
that must drive liberals
insane. I love to throw that out. But at the time, the nation was in a moment of healing. And whether you liked Bush or you didn't like Bush, after 9/11, the first couple of weeks, he really took charge of the nation. He really let it. You watch his speech to Congress about going after terrorists. Everybody stood and applauded him. I know everyone's against the Iraq war now, but they weren't back then. Nobody in that House of Congress on either side argued with his speech back then. But
you sure Biden didn't?
No, I'm positive Biden didn't.
Are you sure?
Yeah. They all applauded it. But the nation as a whole had a common goal. We had to heal as a nation. We were just attacked. We had to find the people that did this. And I can remember we've talked about this before, but the unity of the masses after 9/11, politics fell off the table quick. It wasn't about politics. It was about taking care of our fellow citizens. So you throw that back to when this was written. The nation was healing. We just came out of the Revolutionary War. The country was unified. Well, not just, but we were, you know what I mean. The country was unified. There was that common goal that we spoke about earlier. It was about expanding our freedoms. It was about building our nation. And there was a guy at the helm who everybody had faith in as a president. They may not have liked him personally.
As a leader.
As a leader. No, most people did. But what I'm saying is, I'm sure there's a couple people that didn't like him as a person. I'm sure there's a couple people. Guy named Hank.
Besides Benedict Arnold.
All right, so him. But and a guy named Stu that did his dry cleaning. But what's and I'm sure there was a couple people that disagreed with him politically, maybe not as a whole, but they did.
Jefferson.
Yeah, you look at the writings and they'll tell you there was disagreement, but they all knew
they had a common purpose.
They had a common purpose, and they knew he was the man to lead them there and speak for them, and they trusted him as a president. No matter what side they were on, they trusted his actions.
Well, they didn't really have sides per se, but you said he was the man.
Yes.
So is he the original man? So people say it's the man. Down. Let's think about this. I want to take.
Are you asking me if Chico hung out with him?
George Washington's been a man. The man has kept. No.
Not the man to keep people down, but if someone's like, man, he is the man.
Oh, like that.
That's George Washington.
George Washington. Okay, so it's not like okay, I got you.
But they had a common goal, and I wish our politicians would look back now at what happened then.
They won't, and I want to look. He's asking for in this proclamation something that I have not heard a president do in my lifetime, and that is asking him, capital H, asking God to forgive or to pardon our national and other, which I take to mean personal transgressions. He's asking for forgiveness on behalf of the nation if we've done anything as a nation to offend or When's the last time you've heard that?
Well, and I think, though, what people confuse is they get into this, the group salvation or the social justice, and I think they try to push those two together as, we have to apologize for ourselves. We need this communal salvation, blah, 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 blah.
Collective salvation.
Collective salvation,
yeah.
Correct. And he, I believe, is asking as himself to forgive the transgressions of the nation instead of asking as a nation. Instead of, you know what I mean?
We may then unite and beseech him. So he's saying on behalf of the nation, but Congress asked him to do that as well. So it's the nation, and he is asking on behalf of the nation at the behest of Congress for forgiveness. So as you have the head of government, you have the head of the federal government who's of the executive branch, and you have Congress, so a joint session of both houses, right? So state representatives and the people themselves, because the Senate back then was actually a real Senate.
The state.
And those three come together, and so you have all branches of government, with the exception of the judiciary, I guess, but the representative forms asking for forgiveness. It's very powerful for me. So look, if you're looking for a good Thanksgiving...
Wait, are they asking for forgiveness because they were rich, careless aristocrats? Why would they be asking for any sort of forgiveness?
Well, on behalf of the little people.
Yeah. Okay. That makes way more sense now. It's amazing, and I know we've talked about this a billion times in the last segment, but it's amazing how the liberals hate the founders so much, and what they paint them as.
Did you hear how hateful the words I just read
when you really look into what humble individuals they were and how they believed in individualism helping the nation versus the collectivism, and it's amazing to me how anybody can confuse the matters other than...
It's purposeful distortion.
Thank you.
It's purposeful distortion.
Thank you.
In order to keep people ignorant, because if they're kept ignorant, they're easier to control and manipulate.
Right, with free money, free health care, free checks, free whatever you want.
And misinformation.
Absolutely.
So, look, if you're looking for a good Thanksgiving Day tradition or something to start with your family, I do this, Sean does this. You can just Google George Washington's Thanksgiving Proclamation, and you can find it, print out a copy of it, and something you can start at home.
Yeah, I think it's, either in addition to the prayer or in lieu of the prayer, or even while some people are reading, or, while you go to the store, you can read it.
See, I don't let anybody eat while I'm doing it. Matter of fact, I threw a pretty hard bread roll last year and knocked the fork down. I've happened to be pretty accurate, so I knocked the fork right out.
Which is weird because you throw like a girl.
Out of my uncle's, and not this. Actually, we did the Boston pitcher. So yeah, like a girl.
Yeah. Who has the win this year?
The World Series.
What does that prove? Oh wait, that's the ultimate. Yeah. That doesn't matter.
It proves a lot. Never mind. Forget I said anything.
Ken from the Exceptional Conservative Show said liberals do not hate the founders. This is in the chat room. They adore Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Mao, and FDR.
I agree with the second half. I disagree with the first half in that my niece she was, I brag about her. She's awesome. But she had all honors class and so forth, and she actually had an American history teacher in an AP college level class say that the founders were all rich, dead rich white guys, and they were insignificant. All he said in the class about George Washington was George Washington. He wasn't the how should I say it, brightest man in the world. John Adams, all you need to know about him is alien and sedition acts, and just really glazed through the founding era. And I said, what else did he say about George Washington? She said, that's it. I said, what did you read? She said, we did. That's all he said about George Washington. He didn't read. And they didn't start studying the presidents. They studied Abraham Lincoln, obviously, but they studied Woodrow Wilson in depth. Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States was their textbook. So, of course, I bought her a copy of A Patriot's History of the United States.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Well, why wouldn't I? And it was great. I guess her and her teacher actually got along, but she made him look like a knucklehead a couple times. So he tells the class that all of the founders were rich, white, slaveholding guys. And so she said, all of them? And he said, yes, all of them. And she tells the story better than I can. And she said, well, what about Samuel Adams? And he says, well, yeah, Samuel Adams. And she said, that's weird because Samuel Adams was dirt poor. He was so poor that the town had to have a collection for him in order to buy him a decent suit to go represent them. Oh, and every time he was given a slave, he freed that slave on the spot, never held slaves. Oh, and George Washington freed all his slaves in his will upon his death. Oh, and the big controversy at the time was he tried teaching them that, slaves were 3/5 of a person. She said, yeah, but that was for census to keep the number of pro-slavery representatives down in the South, and ultimately, and I guess she shut him down like several times, but that's what happens when you actually know history and didn't just go to Berkeley or something and regurgitate whatever's
thrown out at you. Well, and I think it's funny, too. I had a niece a couple of years ago who was in a political history class, and I guess she eventually said to the teacher, if you're not going to teach anything that really happened, why are we here? And they did not get along for the rest of the
This is totally a SAC class.
So I think she had to retake it. But this is not, and I'll tell you, as much as I love history, and I had a pretty good knowledge of history before a couple of years ago, as I got older and started to really pay attention more and more, I'd never heard of this proclamation through high school. I'd never heard of it. The only way I originally heard of it was about 10 years ago. I had a friend of mine, not you, though obviously you and I have discussed it. I had a friend of mine who was reading the writings of George Washington in a book and said, hey, have you ever heard of Thanksgiving Proclamation? I said, no. And he told me about it, and I just was blown away. And it adds, it adds to the brilliance of the man, if you really look at it.
The guy who was reading the writings?
Yeah.
Absolutely, because only brilliant people read the writings of George Washington, let's be real. That's not who you were talking about?
Both. How about both? I'll just do both for that. Well, I appreciate that was a history of the George Washington Thanksgiving Day Proclamation. Read it. Share it with your friends. Share it with your loved ones.
Start a family tradition.
Yeah. Share it with liberals.
Share it with liberals. That is the best thing you can do. So what I've done also is I've made several copies, and Planned Parenthood loves it when you throw a stack of these
in their free reading section.
Doctors' offices love it. Schools absolutely love it.
Schools adore it when you throw stuff like this at them.
You know what? Go into a Democrat's office and hand it to them and say, have you found Jesus? They love.
You know what we should do? We should get it written on the front and the back of a T-shirt. And you know how they have those T-shirt guns that you see at sporting events where they shoot the T-shirts all over the place?
Yeah.
Wait for the next either Democrat rally,
Berkeley bus,
any sort of large rally, parade for this, parade for that, and just start shooting them in because, they love free crap.
They do.
So if you can give them these T-shirts, they would be you educated them, which they love. You educated them about real American history, which they are just fanatics over. You gave them a free T-shirt, and if that means that you shot them at 8 feet away with a gun in the face, accidents happen. It's only a T-shirt. It doesn't hurt.
A T-shirt gun.
Yeah. That's what I said, a T-shirt gun.
You said shoot them at 8 feet.
No.
I don't want anybody to think that we're hate mongers.
I hate that we have to clear things up like that.
Hate mongers.
I would never, ever do that.
Unless somebody
was trying to kill me, and then that's a different story. Or someone I love, or somebody, right.
Just something I had to do.
But, yeah, I think that's a great way to outreach. We need better conservative outreach.
They would look at that and say, they just believe in magic.
I do.
Have
you ever see David Blaine jam a nail through his arm? It's pretty amazing.
I tried that once.
Didn't work out so good.
It did. Did you know that stuff hurts?
No.
It was weird.
Right. You would think a 12-inch long spike would just sink right through. I mean, needles go in without a problem.
I know it's an illusion.
I know it's an
But when I did it, it wasn't an illusion.
Oh, man, the stitches weren't either. I can just picture you at like 15 years old in the garage going, all right, I can do this. If Copperfield can make an elephant disappear, I can make this go through my arm. Dad! Yes.
Tourniquets go between the gunshot wound and the heart. It does not work for head wounds. Because you got to tie it around the neck, and that doesn't work out so well.
Yeah, I learned that, I think, in my CPR and first aid class.
Yeah, I learned it the hard way.
I just thought it was weird that somebody shot you in the ear.
And I tried to tourniquet it.
Right.
They said, did you try and give it to us? I said, no, I just was trying to see if I could apply a tourniquet to stop the bleeding.
And then it was a water gun that did it. It was a really weird day for you.
It was actually a Nerf gun. I'm a little old for water guns. Let's be realistic. So okay.
You're never too old for water guns.
I have to tell you about this Nerf war. So I have a Nerf gun.
Yes.
And have you seen the Nerf gun that runs off of D batteries?
Yes.
Sets up on the tripod?
Yes.
So,
is it belt fed? Is it the belt fed one? Yes.
So
we're going to start getting those in the office.
We do.
Okay.
So I had a bunch of kids over at the house. It was a big party, and they all were bringing their Nerf guns over to have a big Nerf gun fight.
Awesome.
They had no idea
that you were going to unload?
That I had the Big Daddy. And so I laid down in the hall, just perfect. I just laid that thing right down the hall. Come get me.
Blap, 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 blap.
Best thing in the world. You know, it feels so good being a full-grown adult and lighting up a bunch of kids and just making them cry and leaving little dark dents in their forehead.
Dark dents.
It was the best thing ever. And then I stood up and I gave a huge roar and I charged them.
And then yelled in your face a bunch of times. That was pretty cool.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Trophy, right? I mean, I wore like a Burger King crown, and I'm the king.
I'm the king. I have a like story.
And all the parents said I was a jerk, and I said, well, come on, you want some? Great.
Then I went outside, flattened all the air in their cars.
I threw beer bottles in your windshield.
It was a blast.
It was the best day ever.
I don't even know whose birthday party it was.
I don't know whose house it was.
But the next time I show up to one like that, I'm doing it all over again.
So it's kind of like wedding crashers. So I just decided to crash little kids' birthday parties. You should try it sometime.
I'll give it a shot. Hey, we're against the break. 347-205-9399 is the phone number. We'll be back in a few here on Sackhead's radio show. Ding dong, who are you, Nerf guy? Lap, 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 lap.
Hey, if you care about what's going on in the world, you cannot afford to miss my show. Hi, this is Andrea Kay, your host of The Andrea Kay Show. It's not always about the money. Okay, it is always about the money, but it's also about politics, pop culture, and you. The only thing street about this show is the smarts. There's a reason they call me Dynamite in a Dress, and you'll find out why when you listen Tuesday mornings at 10 on Financial News and Talk.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hey folks, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. As a native Bostonian, my heart broke on April 15, 2013, watching those horrendous attacks at the Boston Marathon. Now there's a way that you can help. Go to onefundboston.org, ONEFUNDBOSTON.org, where you can donate to help the victims and families from this awful attack. Onefundboston.org, all the proceeds will go directly to the victims' family. Thank you very much from Sackheads Radio.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
Do we have to stop talking about guns when we go off the air?
Why?
Because this happens.
Listen, so, Patriot Ordnance Factory, official gun of Sackheads Radio.
Mm-hmm.
Not a big deal.
Can you say enough good things?
I can't. I really can't. I had the opportunity again to give one a ride, and God, it is just the smoothest. It is the best AR platform
weapon
system that I have ever had the privilege of firing. I really can't say enough about it. Look, I don't work for the company. I'm a huge believer in their product. They make just such a tremendous product with the innovations that they've made, and especially with the gas piston system and some of the patented things that they have incorporated into their guns. And it is just a very accurate, very smooth, flawlessly operating system. I mean, it is outstanding. I can't say enough about it. But Patriot Ordnance Factory, great company.
POF-USA.com.
Yep. Go to the website. I highly encourage you to check them out. But we have the posters in the office, autographed by the artist.
Not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
It's such an amazing poster.
So look, you can buy them on the site. Also, it won't be
the look on the Patriots' face, and I think we talked about this once before. And if you want to tell the story, you can, because
the Patriots' face in the poster where he's got the flag in the background is actually a United States Navy SEAL, and it's just so they have this Patriot series, and instead of having the musket, it's got a POF platform, and they make them in 223 and 308, and they make them for California legal also with the bullet button on there. But this is just a great operating firearm. It really is. It really is. Great products, good company, great company, American made. Again, official gun of Sackheads Radio, Patriot Ordnance Factory.
Absolutely. Check them out. Tell them we sent you.
Tell them.
Even if you just go to their website and throw a little comment on there, just say, hey, Sackheads Radio sent us.
Yeah, or shoot them an email.
Yeah, absolutely. Check them out. Hey, question in the chat room was, who do you want over the least on Thanksgiving, John McCain or Karl Rove? I said Karl Rove because his face looks like a ham.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I am going to say who I would want over least. I would want Karl Rove to come over. So John McCain least, and here's why. Because I respect John McCain's service, but I think he's a progressive wingnut now, and I wouldn't be able to keep my opinions to myself about him, whereas Karl Rove is just, he used to get beat up for his lunch money in school, I think. He looked like the original Elmer Fudd.
He does look like the original
like
Elmer.
The original Elmer. Like with the big tall head and the...
Listen, in all honesty, I'd probably pick McCain as long as we didn't talk politics.
How could you not talk politics?
I would ask him to tell me about his service. I'd be very thankful to him for his service, because that part of his life I still think is amazing.
I'd want to know about Karl Rove's time under the Bush administration.
That's a good one too. That's a toss-up. That is a toss-up.
Who would you want over more for Thanksgiving dinner? Barack Obama
or
Kim Jong-il? Or
I would have to go with
Kim.
I'd have to go with Barack Obama.
Really?
Yes.
You want Barack Obama to come over?
Yeah. Because I feel and we've talked about this before, as ideological different as we are, I'd still want to sit down and talk to him. And I would talk politics with him. I'd ruin everyone's Thanksgiving. And I'd bring it up right then and there.
Absolutely.
Middle of carving the turkey, I'd be like, so, Obamacare, huh? That was stupid. You know, if politically, for the country, everything, it was just a complete implosion. What were you thinking and why? What did you know? What didn't you know? How much did you know of your own legislation?
I would only want to have that conversation with him if there was some, like, truth gas in the air to make him actually tell you the truth. Because he won't tell you the truth on that.
No, but I'd yell BS every time he said something that I thought was BS.
Unless he said...
I'd be like, dude, you're lying.
Unless he said, because
I don't care if you're Secret Service agents here. You're a liar. You're a liar face.
You're a duty head. Big old duty head. And you, Secret Service. You agree with his crap?
Well, you look at Dan Bongino, and the answer is no. So that kind of answers the question. But I think I would like to sit down because I
would you have a beer with Barack Obama?
Yes.
You'd have a beer with him?
Yeah, because I'm not a person, and we've talked about this before, I'm not a person who would shut him out or because I have a political difference. That I am a gentleman enough.
I would have a beer with him after the political discussion.
I'd have one during.
I wouldn't have one during.
You know, it'd be great. Beer and shots, because eventually you'll start getting the truth. No. And I bet you I can outdrink him. No, but think about that. I would look.
Beer pong.
A game of beer pong.
Right, and every time he missed, he had to take a drink and tell the truth.
No, but I have no problem. I have no problem. Having a beer with somebody I disagree with, because I know I can do it in an intelligent manner. And I really think as much as I disagree with him in politics and I despise him politically, I think that it would be an interesting conversation to have because everything I've seen is I think he's kind of funny. I think he's got a good sense of humor.
He does. Look at Obamacare.
Exactly. But I think he would be as candid as he could without being quoted, if that makes sense. And I would push the beer to try to drain that honesty out a little bit more. To be like, all right, listen, we'll just play. We'll play a game of cards, and we'll play Go Fish, and whoever loses has to do a shot. And after about 5 or 6 rounds of Go Fish, I'd be like, all right, listen. You knew we couldn't keep our health care, right?
So basically you'd have 28. You'd be like, You'd be like, Go Fish. You'd be like, Fish got my wish. Go Fish.
I'd be the only guy able to fix the deck in a Go Fish game.
Wait, did you just ask me for 20 aces?
Yep.
Go Fish.
He's like, do you have a joker? And why is my picture on this?
Here. Go Fish.
So, speaking of political differences, which one do you want to talk about first? The Iran deal or Senate going nuclear as far as knocking out the filibuster for certain aspects of conversation?
First, I want to give some word history.
Okay.
Reed. Did you know Reed, the name Reed? What? It's Latin. It's the Latin root word. It's from the Latin root word jalapeno, meaning ball sack. So Harry Reid. What? That's a piece of history most people don't know. Look, you can Google it. Harry Reid's name, Reed. His name Reed.
Just don't
Google. Latin root word. Jalapeno means
right.
Ball sack.
Right. Just don't.
Harry Reid. What's the problem?
I thought Harry meant wrinkled.
No.
Oh.
No.
Shriveled?
No.
Without?
I just want to tickle under his chin and go.
So there's so much wrong with what's being said right now. So your choice, Iran deal or Senate going nuclear?
Senate going nuclear.
Okay.
What do you think I was making fun of Harry Reid for?
Because we're on the air?
Otherwise, I would have talked about John Kerry.
Oh, okay. Speaking of being for it before he was against it. So
hang on. The Stick It Show wants to talk about the Senate.
Ooh.
So let's talk about the Senate.
All right, let's go with the Senate. So last week the Senate went nuclear, essentially eliminating the filibuster for certain aspects of conversation,
for appointees.
For appointees. For now. And I think it's funny, though. You look at the...
Well, they were always for it. They were always for that option. Remember when the Republicans had the power, the Democrats said, yes, you should do it.
The American people want less partisanship in this town, but everyone in this chamber knows that if the majority chooses to end the filibuster, if they choose to change the rules and put an end to democratic debate, then the fighting and the bitterness and the gridlock will only get worse.
That was then Senator Obama.
Yeah, see, he was agreeing with...
He was for it before he was against it before he was for it. He's the anti-Kerry. Reid, same thing. Biden,
He was the anti-Christ? Is that what you said?
Kerry.
Oh, I thought you said...
Anti-Kerry.
I'm sorry. I think I have one of my headphones off.
So it's funny how short-sighted and one of the a friend of mine who is probably one of my favorite political people in the world outside of you turned around and said, oh, I can't wait for the Republicans to get power back in the Senate.
You know what? And they might. But look, Barry back then was a different cat, right?
Mr. Sotero?
Right. Barry was...
Barry from the block. He was just Barry from the block back then.
Barry, yeah. Barry was cool, right?
Right.
Barry was, he understood government, and he wants
the best
for the nation. He got it.
Well, he was all about organizing a community, and you can't do that without a good conversation.
Exactly. Or without an iron grip.
Right.
Either way.
Which you can have a conversation about how tight the grip is.
Right. You can have a conversation about it when you're not the one wearing the gauntlet.
Right.
But all of a sudden, when you are, you can close it and have an iron grip. What is so difficult to understand?
So this is for appointees now, which is amazing that Reid, Biden, all that, they were all against it, but now, hey, it's a great idea. The damn minority, that crazy 10% in government, which I tweeted out. So essentially what the Senate Democrats just did is silenced a minority group in this country on certain issues. Okay. I didn't know we could do that anymore. I didn't know that was acceptable to silence any minority group on any issue at any time.
You can't. There's laws against silencing minority groups.
Except for in our Senate, which it's just a parliamentary procedure.
They're not really a minority group. They're mostly white guys.
No, they're still politically...
They're mostly white guys.
Politically minority, though.
But they're white guys.
But
listen,
being
they are mostly white guys. If most Republicans were any other race, then it would clearly be racist. But you can silence white people. Stop talking. Where's Ken? Let's let him come in. You can't talk right now. Listen, you're on a white guy timeout.
It is
I just buried you. Like Barry Obama. I just did.
Guy timeout. Anyhow.
That's what Reid did, is it not?
Right. It is. That's exactly what it is.
On a white guy timeout.
And here's the thing, is we talked about immediately. This is just awesome. I can't wait till we play this back on a clip. We all know what the end game is here. They want to start jamming courts full of liberals, and they don't want
to jam the D.C. court full of liberals
specifically.
They are the court that rules on executive orders and so forth.
Yes.
And it's the second most powerful court in the nation.
Yeah.
And the Republicans were stonewalling. They were filibustering some of these nominations, and so absolutely, of course they want that. Now they won't be able to pack it full of liberals, which means old Barry half white can issue these. What did I say that was not true? Why are you giving me that look? Why is sweat beading on your forehead and now beginning to drip down the front of your face?
Because I had a jalapeno.
Sometimes I walk the line. So so very half-white, just basically he can issue whatever executive order he wants, and the courts will uphold it.
Right.
As soon as the Republicans in there, it'll overturn it. By the way, he is half-black, so why don't conservatives start referring to him as a white president just to piss him off? If the liberals can say he's the first black president, why is he? That was
well, because that was Clinton.
Right. So why is he able to say, well, I just choose to be this, and so I'm the first black president? What if conservatives choose to recognize his lighter side? Not like lighter, like lighthearted comedic side, but like.
Well, and it's funny
what
too.
What if he in fact is another white president?
The uber left, and especially those who make money off the race baiting, you'll notice when he does something that aggravates them, that comes out quick. And I've heard that a few times from people that just love to play that race card into it. And all of a sudden, then he's not the real first black president. He's only half black. And okay, so now you're trying to walk it back. He doesn't represent all the black guys in this country anymore, all the black people in this country anymore.
Right. So So at that moment, they choose. You know what that is? The extreme left, when he does something they don't like, he says, you know what? He did that because that's the white side of him that made that decision.
Well, then I went further and say, what difference does it make what color he is? But in 200 years or less, we're all going to be light brown anyhow. So that's just the way it's going to happen.
It's such a hodgepodge.
I know.
People anyway. Why does it matter? This is why I refuse on those race forms.
Yeah.
I refuse to put anything that I check the other box
and put American.
I do.
I know. I do too.
Hyphenated nation. We've talked about this before.
But it's amazing to me that there is that plan in place, and people that don't look at the overall picture with.
Hang on. Hold that thought.
Okay.
I had a very amazing epiphany.
Okay, we're going to get back to the whole.
Yes, if Obama considers himself African American, was he then perhaps really born in Kenya?
You really going to start this?
Wait a second.
Oh, man.
Is that an admission?
Oh, the Uber. Oh, my God. They think he's Kenyan and he hasn't produced a
African American. Is he not admitting guilt that he was in fact born in Kenya? I'm just throwing it out there, folks. I don't make the facts here.
Oh, wait for the email to start now. Oh, your birthers. Oh, Lord. So you get back to the nuclear option that the Dems just, and like you said, they're going to start trying to sack the Washington D.C. federal court. Who rules on the executive orders? Okay, we know that's their plan. We know why, because he's going to start using executive orders to try to fix the Obamacare mess and try to bolster it, pass gun control more and more, which, by the way, I thought it was funny. Charlie Rangel this week said, why doesn't he just try to do everything by executive order and bypass Congress as much as humanly possible, which is funny because that was the same thing that he said he was going to do a couple of years ago, even though this week when he was speaking in San Francisco, he actually called out a guy who said, why don't you just do the amnesty thing through executive order? And he said, if I could, I would, but we're a nation of laws, and I have to respect that.
I have to respect it as much as because there's no way people would let me get away with that. Otherwise, I don't really respect the laws of this nation. I pretty much do what I want, or as much as I think I can get away with. I just translate that answer.
It's exactly what it was. But now I look at how scared Democrats are that Obamacare is going to burn them in 2014, that they want to get it's such short-sighted politics that they know they need to do this now for him to try to fix Obamacare. We're going to go to the single-payer system anyhow if we don't scrap this completely. But they're willing to sacrifice in, say, 2 years when the roles reversed, or 2014 when the roles reversed, and all of a sudden they could very well be the minority, especially if Obamacare gets worse and worse and worse.
Why do you keep bringing race into this?
Stop it. Because I have to.
Let's be clear, we are not birthers.
We are not birthers. I know. We have to clarify everything because our sarcasm just doesn't bleed through the radio like it should. We're still going to get the email. Thanks. I have to field all that crap. And by field it, I mean I have to hit delete.
And that's my point.
I could care less.
Because we don't care.
Because it makes me laugh.
Exactly.
But you look at that, and they're going to turn around and Stick it shows up in the chat room. Your sarcasm is fantastic. I know you want birthers. Thank you very much. But they're going to turn around, and in 2 years, they're going to be crying about the same parliamentary change, rule change, of we don't have a voice because of that thing, and I wasn't here when it was passed, or I didn't necessarily want it, blah, 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 blah. But they are so scared right now with Obamacare destroying them in 2014. We talked about with Tammy last week. They had that meeting, the Dems had that meeting 2 weeks ago where they lit the president up about Obamacare. Like, what in the hell? I can't run on this. They had people who aren't running for re-election turning around and saying, I'll vote for a Republican plan right now if it fixes this. And I think those are the people who are like, hey, I got nothing to lose. I got to protect my constituents, whether we agree or disagree. Why? Those are the people who are starting to come out of the woodwork and say, oh, this whole thing's a freaking train wreck. Now we're going to change the parliamentary order. It doesn't matter what it does to us in 2 years. It's right now we need it because that's the only way we're going to get anything passed. And I think they see the writing on the wall. It's a big.
But the Republicans are missing an opportunity. Even since Reid did this, they still don't have to agree on things like cloture.
No.
They can very easily gum up the works and say, hey, you know what? Fine. Screw you. Now it's our turn to play the game. And play the game. But they didn't do it, and they agreed to cloture like the very next vote or two.
Right.
So the Republicans miss an opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to be the bigger people.
And that's something I've talked before. We got to get
Republicans French?
No. Well, honestly,
Is there a big white flag being raised? Is that the new Republican?
We're too nice for our own good.
I think is waving that, right?
Well, yeah, but that's because
maybe it should be like
his white flag is merely to signal the nurse that his diaper needs a change. Now.
Okay, I didn't know. Maybe he was trying to land an aircraft or something.
That shows you, though, how bad, and we haven't hit anything. A friend of mine who's an attorney that does healthcare and has specifically studied Obamacare said, this is nothing. The reason it's bad now is, okay, it is what it is. The website's bad. Nobody can enroll. It's destroying, and he's not making light of it, but it's destroying millions of people's private health insurance. Wait till the employer mandate comes out. Wait till that hits, and wait till you see how destroyed our system's going to become. And there's a reason why open enrollment next year is moved after the midterms. It got moved instead of just being extended because it's going to be a humongous disaster. And this vote, and a lot of people aren't even making a big deal out of this vote, is huge. It shows how fearful the Democrats are of how much worse it's going to get.
Mainstream media is not making a big deal of this vote.
But a lot of people aren't.
And understand know the big deal of the vote.
Absolutely.
And I think even the liberals understand the big deal of the vote because they understand that things are going to change.
Yeah.
Guess what? You may have this filibuster thing in place now for the D.C. court, but guess what? If we get power, stand by for the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not turning the rules back.
Yeah. And we're not going to do the nice.
Came and say, oh well, let's give them filibuster because it was wrong to be taken away, and we should blah 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 cuckoo.
Oh yeah.
That was a McCain quote.
Do
you have the clip?
I do. Let me see. I do have McCain's clip here somewhere. Oh, this was, when did he say it? He said it last week.
He said it a couple. Yeah, the clip about.
Here it is.
Yep. Yeah, that was the one I was talking about. So.
The worst one is I had to stall to play it. So I think that's a good sign for the conservatives in 2014, but what we have to do is really
take a break right now.
We have to take a break. The conservatives really have to stay on this. Fine. When we come back from our break, our good friend Ken is going to join us on the air, and I have a brand new intro for him that I spent a lot of time this week working on. So we hope you absolutely join us for that.
So if Ken's coming on, does that mean we're going to be on a white timeout?
No, because unlike the Harry Reid people,
Reid meaning
Harry, right? Ken actually will let us talk. If we can talk over his laughter, we'll be able to say something.
If we're funny enough.
347-205-9399 is the phone number. We'll be back in 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Show. Kind of is.
Hey, if you care about what's going on in the world, you cannot afford to miss my show. Hi, this is Andrea Kay, your host of The Andrea Kay Show. It's not always about the money. Okay, it is always about the money, but it's also about politics, pop culture, and you. The only thing street about this show is the smarts. There's a reason they call me Dynamite in a Dress, and you'll find out why when you listen Tuesday mornings at 10 on Financial News and Talk.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hey folks, it's Sean from Sackheads Radio. As a native Bostonian, my heart broke on April 15, 2013, watching those horrendous attacks at the Boston Marathon. Now there's a way that you can help. Go to onefundboston.org, onefundboston.org, where you can donate to help the victims and families from this awful attack. Onefundboston.org, all the proceeds will go directly to the victim's family. Thank you very much from Sackheads Radio.
I appreciate you shaking up my Gatorade.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
Yeah, the Tootsie Pop. Take it out of your mouth.
We're back here for part 4 of the Sackheads Radio Show. What? Joining us on the air right now is our good friend, the exceptional conservative, the best in urban conservative talk, Ken McClinton. And I have
to be urban conservative.
Because he is.
He's the only urban conservative.
Don't let me practice a knockout game, buddy.
So, Ken, I worked really hard on this intro, and I want to make sure that you're okay with it. I probably should have sent it to you first, but you know what? I find it best just to spring things on people.
Hey, boy.
There you go, spring
look what I got here. Hey, where are the white women at? Ain't nobody got time for that.
What do you think?
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Can you play it again? Can you play it again? I love it.
All right, it's the time.
Hey, boys, look what I got here. Hey, where are the white women at? Ain't nobody got time for that.
Oh, gentlemen, God bless you all. Happy Thanksgiving and all the other luxuries that come with Hanukkah. Wow. That's awesome. I love that. I love that clip. I need to have that clip. Send that to me so I can play it on my own show. That's wonderful.
I'll absolutely send every Monday through Thursday on Blog Talk Radio. You can catch the Exceptional Conservative Show. How are you, my friend? How is everything?
I am doing well, and I called in because I'm a birther too. I don't think Ted Cruz has a chance of winning once we find out the fact that his parents lived in Canada. You know, that's the kind of birthing thing that we're really concerned about in this country. We got to make certain that we make, it's presidents like Obama who have been born in this country. We got proof because, listen, I used the typewriter to actually make that certificate. We got proof. So we shouldn't be worried about the birther with Obama. It's Ted Cruz that we're concerned about.
Well, you know, it's funny because I had a friend of mine who, again, the same liberal I was talking to, who was bringing up Ted Cruz, and he said something to the effect of, he's like, well, you know, if they're going to have to go after Obama, they'd have to go after Ted Cruz if he ran for the presidency. And I said, yeah, and hopefully he'd be elected just like Obama. And there was a long pause. And I said, I don't know what you remember, but he's still in office. Twice he got reelected. So as much as there was birther talk or whatever, he still went through. So if you want to do that to Ted Cruz, if you want to have birther talk so he gets elected, okay. Thanks for doing that for us.
Can I read something? Can I read something to you all? Because of Thanksgiving, it's a very solemn occasion for this country. And there are so many in the liberal establishment, the minions of Marx, Mao, and Obama, who pride themselves on natural selection when it comes to selectivity, of course, and the presentation of facts. I want to read something to you that took place on November 11, 1779. And this is after John Paul Jones, who was commanding the Bonhomme Richard, captured the British ship HMS Serapis. The Continental Congress declared a day of Thanksgiving, which Governor Thomas Jefferson, not Tim Kaine, Governor Thomas Jefferson, chose to proclaim for Virginia on November 11, 1779. And this is what he wrote in Proclaim. Congress hath thought proper to recommend to the several states a day of public and solemn thanksgiving to Almighty God for his mercies and of prayer, for the continuance of his favor, that he would go forth with our host and crown our arms with victory, that he would grant to his church the plentiful effusions of divine grace and pour out his Holy Spirit on all ministers of the gospel, that he would bless and prosper the means of education and spread the light of Christian knowledge through the remotest corners of the earth. I do, therefore, issue this proclamation for appointing a day of public and solemn thanksgiving in prayer to Almighty God, given under my hand this 11th day of November in the year of our Lord, 1779, Governor Thomas Jefferson.
You know what?
Seems like he really hated.
Yeah,
he was a heathen.
Well, there's something else, Ken, with that, and this is from the man who so thought it was such a deist and so thought about separation of church and state. Right after the next paragraph, after the one you read, was that, and quoting again, same proclamation, that he would in mercy look down upon us, pardon all our sins, and receive us into his favor, and finally, that he would establish the independence of these United States upon the basis of religion and virtue, and support and protect them in the enjoyment of peace, liberty, and safety.
Wow.
So he says in that same proclamation specifically that he would establish the independence upon the basis of religion and virtue. And again, this is, like you said, Thomas Jefferson, same proclamation. But that is an outstanding proclamation. I'm very familiar with that one as well.
Does it shock anybody that Clinton was familiar with that? So,
I'm sorry.
You know, Ken, I want to get your feedback on a couple things. First and foremost, I know we talked about it last segment. Just real quick on the nuclear option from the Senate.
That's a quick way to get $8 billion, and I'm just trying to figure out a way I can get that lotto ticket. I'm sorry. I am very sorry. Nothing made me more irate on my show earlier this week than to have to go on and tell people about the fact that we traded. There were hostages that were kept for over 2 years by a man who would later become the president of Iran. And now the president of the United States is actually sitting at the table, because if you sit in Kerry, you're virtually his ambassador. You're sitting at the table, and you're negotiating the fact that what we did in 1979, we have to apologize for, and we must give them money for that. And by the way, keep your plutonium while you're at it. Keep your nuclear arms. And if that doesn't work for you, we'll let the UN check up on you every 6 years to see if you're really not making any bombs. I have gotten to the point where I think this man is literally maliciously doing for America. He's burning everything on the road to Atlanta and before he burns Atlanta down. And I sincerely hope that this Congress would be so strong as to reject the treaty and in exchange for that, vote in tougher sanctions on Iran.
Well,
hold your breath.
Well, you might. I agree with Clint to a point, but even a lot of Democrats are coming out against this deal. They're not exactly thrilled about it because they know that this has done nothing for Iran against Iran. All it has really done is been a distraction from Obamacare for the American people. And I have a couple articles where it just kind of slams everything about this. The fact that they're allowed to keep their centrifuges. The first inspection's not for another 6 months.
Well, maybe their centrifuges are for pilot training.
And in 6 months might as well be 6 years. What are you going to say?
Exactly. And they're so close now to having, but they're close enough now to having enough enriched plutonium or uranium rather to make a bomb that who knows what they'll have in 6 months. And it doesn't shut down all their centrifuges. All this is, sadly, is a smokescreen by this president to make himself look like the leader in a face where right now he is looking like a nitwit. And all it sounds like to me is this.
Ooh, I love to dance a little side step. Now they see me, now they don't know. And gone.
Just walk right around it. Hey, everyone, look over here. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I'm in charge right now. And even the Iranians, and this is just in the last couple hours, the Iranians have turned around and said that what the American government is saying is not what's actually in the treaty. That's just the American interpretation of it, and that it's not nearly as intensive as we're being led to believe. So even the Iranians, within a week or two, a week of signing this plan, are saying, yeah, that's not what's going to happen, and we're not living up to those agreements. So go pound sand, essentially. Once again, Frankenstein was sent over to. This is essentially a way to bleed the American brain a little bit more and change focus from Obamacare, which is where we need to be focusing right now, to BS sanctions. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, which obviously, as much as I don't want anyone to have Iran to have nukes as much as anyone, our first concern is our friends in Israel. Because they're the ones who will suffer first more than likely. So Netanyahu was on with Candy Crowley this week on CNN. I'm going to play the interview real quick.
I do want to talk to you about increasing sanctions. As you know, in the U.S. Congress, there is a move toward that. But let me just button this up by playing something that the President said, which goes precisely to the point of those sanctions that you fear can never, that would open up sort of a floodgate of people wanting to do business with Iran. Here's what he said.
If it turns out 6 months from now that they're not serious, we can dial those sanctions right back up.
Well, I've responded to that, Candy, and I think that in practice that may be the president's desire and intention. I have no doubt about that. But my assessment, given what I see now, I already see the countries and the investors and the companies scrambling to get to Iran. I already hear that those voices. I receive that information. Everybody's getting ready to the starting line to rush to Iran to be in part of that deal. I think, but if you went the other way, and you not only preserve the sanctions instead of reducing them, but you actually increase them, then, all these countries and all these companies will have to choose between the Iranian economy and the U.S. economy, because that's what additional sanctions mean. It means choose Iran or the U.S. That's a no-brainer. Everybody will choose the U.S., siding up with the increased sanctions. Everybody has up to now. And if you continue the pressure now, you can get Iran to cease and desist. Because, the options aren't really a bad deal, and this is a bad deal, or war. There's a third option. Sanctions. Increase the sanctions. And in fact, if you do a bad deal, you may get to the point where your only option is a military option. So a bad deal actually can lead you to exactly the place you don't want to be. I think if you want a peaceful solution, as I do, then the right thing to do is ratchet up the sanctions.
Hey, Ken, real quick, if you had to put your money on who you're going to believe, this president, John Kerry, or Benjamin Netanyahu, who would it be?
That's real tough. Oh, gee. Can you get the clock going here? Benjamin.
No, I agree. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, as much as this president would not want to believe it, has far more experience with Iran and international...
I want Benjamin Netanyahu to actually make fun of the president and what's happening even more. I want him to say things like, were the Americans talking to the mothership? Were the Americans... I want him to just make this president look like a complete ass.
Well, he just did.
Yeah, but not outwardly, so not like in a nice political way.
He's too much of a gentleman. He'll never do it.
I know.
Yeah. Obama needs to pick up the phone and apologize to our neighbor to the north, because he left Canada holding the bag completely. Just like he left Israel, he left Canada holding the bag. They are pissed.
Canada was holding Pelosi?
Close enough.
She does get drunk.
Now, that brings up another subject about Sarah Palin and Martin Bashir on the bag thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would say...
Go ahead.
No, I just want, in closing, I just want to say that this administration is either on the world marketplace is the most malicious anti-American organization, the envy of Al-Qaeda, or it is the most incompetent group of people who have ever come to power. And it will be by divine providence that we can outlast the next 3 years of the Obama administration. I will say that.
I agree. It's sad. If they really are this incompetent, then shame on us. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. And look, I think the Prime Minister of Israel pointed it out really well there, is we didn't have to go with no sanctions. We could have accomplished the same thing we have now by keeping the sanctions and increasing, and if something went south, we can look from there. But by removing some of these sanctions but have no inspections for 6 months, it gives them 6 months to hide things, move things, change things, make things look prettier. It is so ridiculous that this plan was, this quote-unquote deal was even cut. And I think he's very right. And he sets it up, and this is why I really think that he is a great statesman. He says, hey, you know what, this kind of leaves you with only a military option. And I think that translates into 6 months of, hey, in 6 months, if they don't get their crap together, guess what we're going to do? And I don't care what you say, America. It's nothing against the country, but your leaders are not paying attention to what's going on, and we need to protect ourselves because obviously this administration could care less. And I'm starting to believe that.
Mm-hmm. Two quick things here. Just two quick things. First and foremost, military option works favorably for Obama because he needs a national event to galvanize everyone to take the attention off of Obamacare. We all come together, we all rally in support of Israel and also the United States because we have to be an ally and support them in their efforts for bunker busting Iran. So that works in his political favor. The second thing is Candy Crowley needs to change her name because when I turn on CNN and I think of Candy, I want to see one of them hot little bunnies. You know what I'm saying? Triple D or whatever, small outfit, legs showing, Fox News oriented. That's what I think, Candy. Throw all over the place.
And then say that.
I think it's great. 2 weeks ago, he had two conservative gals on the air talking about women, and then he comes on that show. You know what I love about Ken? He is never shy about who he is. I think that's the best part. No, I think it is a little bit of a intentional wag the dog, if you will, 6 months down the line. Is if Obamacare is still a train wreck, if the economy still is just in the dumpster, which it probably will be, if Benghazi facts are starting to come out more, which should be happening here hopefully in the next month or so. I think we're going to start hearing a lot more about it, it looks like. He will need that discussion. He will need that way to be a quote-unquote leader.
He may get impeached.
Well, yeah. You'll know if that's coming because all of a sudden we'll be bombing Iran. Well, that's weird. Yeah. Why do we bomb Iran on a Tuesday in January? And breaking news, the impeachment. Oh, gotcha. Why would you dare impeach the president? We're in a time of international turmoil and need. He needs to be our leader. Well, he's had 5.5 years to try to do that. And he has yet to be the leader that everyone said he was going to be, this great community organizer, this great man that could really rally people together. All he's done is cause divisiveness not only within this country, but within our allies, and essentially to our enemies or our no, I'd say enemies. Iran's our enemy.
Yeah, but no, it's better, right? Because the Russians are going to get to put monitoring stations here in the United States. Right? So that's good. What's their space program? It's for their space program and to make them competitive in the GPS global market, because why would we want to have an edge on that? It's not to listen in or intercept cell phone calls or for intelligence purposes. Listen, don't just because the Pentagon and the CIA is trying to stop this from happening. The State Department knows best.
Well,
what could possibly go wrong?
I mean, really, we the NSA. Who cares if it's the Russians at this point? Let's stop our own government first. I expect the Russians to be spying on us. I don't expect our own country to be spying on us. So let's deal with step number one. I bet you, though, you know how that went in? Hey, listen, if you let us put in a listening station for our space program, quote unquote, we'll give you Snowden back. Deal. Just kidding. No Snowden. Damn it. How does Putin keep getting like that?
They'll give you the ring from New England. It looks beautiful.
That's far more accurate than ours. We need to put some stations in to help guide our missiles into strategic locations, just so everything's an even playing field and everything's fair and everybody gets a trophy. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
And at that point, Reagan spun 252 times exactly in his grave.
Well, George Washington, Mount Vernon was never known as a haunted, but all of a sudden George Washington is roaming the halls again. It's weird.
He's not roaming. He's pacing.
No,
he's pissed.
He's looking for...
He's pissed.
Why isn't VTR at the table? Because they could have gotten something out of the deal to improve the listening. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. That was
I don't know. Like, VTR should have offered something or somehow got into that. I don't know. Listen, it's a disgrace. This whole Iran deal is a disgrace. What's going on with the Russians is a disgrace. It keeps going, and that's what bothers me. And we still have, 3 years left of this crap?
Yeah,
Well, actually, we have three momentous events that are coming up. Again, January 1 with Obamacare, January 15th with the national debt, the raising of the debt ceiling, and also the continuing resolution.
So they'll do that too. Amnesty. Don't forget amnesty. We're going to sign right onto that. And anything else Boehner can really break in.
He made us so weak as a nation and so divided as a nation. So we are not only weaker politically and militarily as a nation, I think we're weaker as a people as well because we're so divided.
Well, and we're so just, everything's handed to us, and it's that whole keep calm and don't worry mentality. Everything's going to be fine when everything's not fine, and nothing is okay. And I'll be honest with you right now, nothing is okay to me politically in this world right now. I just feel that we're going down a road so quickly that we may never be able to hit the button to turn around on. And there are people championing this movement, and he is one of the worst, this president.
Yeah, but how many states now are considering secession movements?
Well,
it's not just Colorado.
And what came out of Virginia last week?
West Virginia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. East-West Virginia.
East-West Virginia? Northwest Virginia? I don't know. Well, Virginia signed on to the didn't they put together like preliminary articles for a convention?
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how that tells you, because the last one was...
That tells you how many people actually listen to our show and like our ideas.
Because we suggested it a few months ago. It's not a big deal.
It's actually a huge deal.
There you go. I love you, originators. I just want to say this one thing to the Stick It Show, who's in the chat room. Sacco will be coming to your Thanksgiving dinner, and he will bring the 1976 Atari game so that you might enroll in Obamacare. So just wait. He will be there.
He's going to sit down and talk to you all about the good things that Obamacare can do for you.
But you have to have a Commodore 64 to be able to connect.
Oh, my God.
It's bad. When the president releases commercials that says, hey, your federal holiday, your family time, a time of remembrance, a time of family, a time to be together, I want you to push my agenda of Obamacare. I don't want you to. I kind of need you to, because we're screwed.
You have to talk about what I want you to talk about. Who else did that? Somebody else did that. Somebody else did that. That doesn't make any difference, my comment.
I think Chairman Mao did that too. Just pinpointing something else here. How weak do you have to be when the people who hold political power are running away from you, and you have to demand that Granny, who's fixing the turkey tonight, go before her kids and family tomorrow and mention Obamacare? How weak and sissy, you're like a little girl. Forgive my French, gentlemen. You can edit that one.
No, not at all. I want to know one thing. Talk about Obamacare at my dinner table tomorrow. Can I write off the entire dinner as a business transaction?
No, because you are a conservative nonprofit. Go ahead and put your taxes in, buddy.
Ken, the Exceptional Conservative Show, we got to wrap it up, my friend.
Yes, sir. Listen, Clint, great job this year. Wonderful job. You get promoted. Sacco, wonderful job. You get promoted. Sean, you need to work on it. But happy Thanksgiving to all of you. God bless you. Wonderful, wonderful. See, I didn't pick on Sacco today. See, that's a good thing. God bless.
In the corner, sucking his thumb.
He's actually looking out the window to see if the federal agents are going to hit the door.
Hairy little guy. Looks like a fur rug. Really not.
He's actually kind of like a poodle. We keep him around because he's like the studio poodle.
So you've seen Chewbacca. It's kind of like that.
Don't take that, Sacco. You're the rolling people for Obamacare. God bless you all. Happy Thanksgiving. God bless.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving to you. God bless. Thank you very much. Everybody out there, we wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. To you and your family, do not discuss Obamacare at the table. Discuss important things like your family.
Don't discuss Obamacare.
Read the Thanksgiving Proclamation by George Washington. Be thankful for what you have and strive to obtain more through the appropriate way, working for it, like everyone else did. Strive to be...
But not everybody else did. So what are you? I don't even. You're confusing right now. It's a completely different language. Who are you? Enjoy your holiday however you do it. If you prefer hookers and blow, then hey, go knock yourself out. If you like a turkey dinner around a fire watching football, great.
Hookers and blow. That's a Thanksgiving message from the Sackheads Radio Show. Enjoy your hookers and blow. We will see you next Wednesday night here at 8 o'clock on the Sackheads Radio Show. Follow us on Facebook. We are on Twitter at Sackheads, and you can check us out always at sackheadsradio.com. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you soon. He said hookers and blow.